In Resident Evil, a single drop of leaked virus gave birth to an army of flesh-hungry zombies, and then something far worse. One mutation led to another, each more lethal and unpredictable, turning shuffling corpses into predators like the Crimson Head and the deadly Licker, whose exposed brain gives it hearing so sharp you can't even whisper near one. Every single Resident Evil monster type explained isn't just a tour of freakish creatures. It maps out how one genetic accident spiraled into a global arms race, cranking up the horror with every step. But how did pure chaos unleash such an organized nightmare, and which monster truly rules the food chain? The answer starts at the very first bite. The first infected didn't rise with a roar or a scream, but with a slow, hungry shuffle. The T-Virus, engineered deep within Umbrella's laboratories, was never meant to create mindless monsters. In reality, its earliest victims became walking case studies in metabolic chaos. The virus hijacked their bodies, ramping up growth hormone production and twisting muscle fibers, even as it burned through their brains like wildfire. Within hours, neural decay set in, higher reasoning gone, replaced by a single gnawing instinct: feed. Bite wounds weren't just dangerous, they were contagious. Each attack meant a fresh dose of virus delivered straight into the bloodstream. The infection didn't discriminate. Security guards, scientists, janitors, anyone unlucky enough to be bitten joined the ranks, their bodies growing taller, their skin graying, their senses dulled except for a relentless drive to hunt. The process left them numb to pain, their limbs jerking and twisting as necrosis set in. Yet, despite the rot, these zombies could break down doors and keep moving long after losing half their flesh. What Umbrella tried to cover up was the virus's real trick. It didn't just kill, it rewired. Dormant hosts could lie still for days, only to lurch back to life at the faintest sound or scent. This wasn't some supernatural plague. It was a calculated biological weapon, designed to spread fast and leave no survivors. In the end, the only rule was simple: one bite, and you were already lost. The outbreak didn't just empty hallways and laboratories. It set the stage for everything that followed. Every mutation, every monster, every escalation into chaos. Dormant bodies didn't always stay down for long. After days of stillness, some of the infected began to change. The T-Virus, never content to let nature take its course, had another card to play. V-Acti. Left alone, certain zombies underwent a second transformation, their metabolism kicking into high gear. Blood pumped faster, skin flushed red, and claws grew sharp enough to tear through steel. These were the Crimson Heads, a warning that the virus could learn and adapt, even after death. They moved with a speed that left survivors scrambling, their hunger matched only by their newfound strength. But the virus wasn't finished. In rare cases, those that survived even longer or fed more than most underwent a much stranger metamorphosis. Flesh peeled away, leaving muscle exposed and pulsing. Their skulls split, brain swelling and pushing out, eyes lost entirely. What they lost in sight, they gained in hearing. Lickers, as they'd come to be called, hunted by sound alone. Their tongues, long and coiled like whips, could snatch prey from across a room. Walls and ceilings became highways, their claws digging into concrete with ease. Blind but never lost, they stalked their territory in silence, waiting for the careless step or muffled breath. The Licker was the virus's answer to every failed experiment. A creature built for ambush, thriving where others rotted. No handler, no leash, no oversight. Just pure predatory instinct, honed by the virus's relentless drive to improve. Each new form was a lesson in escalation. The slow became fast, the clumsy became agile, and the infected became the hunters. In the end, the only thing more terrifying than a world overrun by zombies was a world where the virus kept getting better at its job. Umbrella's first real success on the bioweapon market wasn't a mindless brute or a runaway mutation. It was the Hunter, designated MA-121, a creature built from the ground up for obedience and violence in equal measure. Early prototypes could recognize up to 10 spoken commands, a limit set as much by their engineered intelligence as by the need to keep things simple for field operatives. Birkin's team spliced reptilian DNA into human embryos, then used the T-Virus as the glue, producing something with the loyalty of a trained dog and the reflexes of a predator. These creatures didn't just respond to orders, they worked in packs, using flanking maneuvers and coordinated strikes to corner their targets. Later models, like the Hunter 2, took things further. Each unit was fitted with an optical computer that synced with automated surveillance drones. Instead of waiting for a handler's signal, the Hunter would receive its target coordinates directly from the drone, then move in for the kill. This shift meant no more shouting commands in the heat of battle, just point and the hunter would do the rest, ignoring everything except the designated enemy. Physically, the hunter's keratinous scales gave it a natural armor, shrugging off small arms fire and making close-quarters combat a losing proposition for most opponents. But there were limits. A grenade at close range could rattle those internal systems enough to bring one down, and extreme cold could freeze them solid, leaving them as little more than statues. Even so, for Umbrella, the hunter was proof that monsters could be manufactured to spec, shipped out, and controlled, at least until the next round of improvements demanded something even more specialized. The T-Virus didn't just stop at people. Once it leaked into the environment, every living thing on the grounds became fair game. Dogs, for instance, were a favorite test subject early on. Umbrella called them Cerberus. These weren't just pets gone bad. The virus twisted their muscles, sharpened their senses, and stripped away any fear of pain. What resulted was a pack animal that hunted with military precision, tearing through fences and flesh in equal measure. Their bite was as infectious as any zombies, but their speed made them a far deadlier surprise. Even the smallest residents weren't spared. Web spinners, once harmless spiders, ballooned to the size of a grown man's chest. Their venom, now turbocharged by the virus, could paralyze in seconds. They spun webs across whole corridors, turning safe passage into a deadly obstacle course. The virus's reach didn't end there. In the mansion's flooded labs, sharks, designated Neptune, grew to monstrous proportions. But it wasn't just their size that changed. These creatures became territorial, aggressive, and nearly impossible to contain. Any breach in their tanks meant disaster. Plants, too, got a taste of viral ambition. Plant 42, rooted deep in the Spencer mansion, developed a network of vines that could sense movement and inject a neurotoxin potent enough to drop a grown adult in moments. Its roots spread through the building's plumbing, turning a simple leak into a lethal trap. Each of these creatures was proof that the T-Virus didn't follow a script. It adapted, mutated, and found new ways to thrive, often in ways Umbrella's scientists never predicted. For every monster they planned, there were a dozen more that slipped through the cracks, each a case study in what happens when science loses control. Las Plagas didn't just create new monsters, they rewrote the rules of survival entirely. In the Spanish countryside, infected villagers called ganados moved with purpose, not hunger. They kept their memories, their skills, and their sense of community, turning pitchforks and axes into weapons of defense. Unlike the slow, stumbling undead, these hosts coordinated ambushes, barricaded doors, and set traps for outsiders. Tool use became second nature, and even the simplest farmhand could wield dynamite or operate heavy machinery when the need arose. The secret lay in the parasite's hive mind. Las Plagas used ultrasonic signals to link every infected brain, letting them act as a single organism. At the top of the chain, dominant Plaga hosts issued commands that rippled through the ranks, shifting entire villages into siege mode at a moment's notice. When a threat appeared, Ganados would swarm from alleys and rooftops, flanking intruders with military precision. The same principle held true in Africa, where the Majini adapted these tactics to their own environment, improvising weapons, using cover, and even driving vehicles as a pack. This wasn't mindless aggression. It was strategy, enforced by biology. As a result, the Plagas threat never relied on raw numbers alone. A handful of infected could hold off a well-armed rescue team using every resource at their disposal. The risk wasn't just infection anymore. It was the possibility that, given time, the parasite's network could spread beyond any quarantine, turning entire populations into a single coordinated force. For the first time, the monsters weren't just evolving, they were organizing. Regenerators brought a new kind of dread to the island labs, where the rules of infection seemed to twist even further. Unlike the Ganados outside, these experiments weren't content with a single parasite. Instead, each regenerator housed 3 or 4 Plaga deep within its flesh, each one acting like a living repair kit, ready to patch up bullet wounds or even regrow entire limbs in seconds. The result was a creature that couldn't be stopped by ordinary means. Blasting off a leg only slowed it for a moment. Severed arms would twitch, then knit themselves back together, the body shuddering with each unnatural repair. Thermal imaging became the only reliable answer. Through the scope, those parasites glowed like embers inside a dying fire, each one a target that had to be destroyed before the regenerator would finally collapse. Miss even one, and the thing would drag itself forward, jaws gnashing, skin stretching over bones that refused to stay broken. The Iron Maiden variant took this design further, sprouting spikes from its body and launching them at anything within reach. Even then, its core weakness stayed the same. Target the parasites, and the monster's endless healing would finally fail. Elsewhere, the mold found in Dulvey, Louisiana took the hive mind idea to its limit. Here, infection didn't just mean a single host, it meant joining a network that spanned entire families and buildings. The mold's mycelia ran through walls and floors, linking every infected mind to a central intelligence. Evelyn, the E-Series bioweapon, controlled this network with pheromones, compelling her victims to obey. But the mold's most chilling trick lay in memory. The Megamycete, buried beneath the village, absorbed every thought and feeling from those who died nearby. For some, this meant a kind of immortality, memories and personalities lingering in the mold's collective consciousness, waiting to resurface long after their bodies had vanished. Both regenerators and molded creatures show how Resident Evil's monsters kept evolving. No longer satisfied with simple infection, these threats learned to repair, adapt, and remember. What began as a slow-moving virus had become a living network, always searching for a new way to survive. Across more than 25 years, Resident Evil has cataloged over 60 distinct monster types, each traced to specific viruses, parasites, or bioweapon experiments, documented in in-game files and official art books. The evidence shows how a single T-virus leak evolved from slow zombies to advanced creatures like lickers and hunters, while corporate records confirm Umbrella's shift from accidental outbreaks to engineered weapons. Yet many project files remain classified, and details on the origins of parasites like Las Plagas are still incomplete. Official documents confirm that bioweapon outbreaks have occurred on multiple continents, with each generation of monsters pushing the limits of control and adaptation. Today, the series archive stands as both a record of scientific hubris and a warning. Every attempt to contain these threats in-universe has failed, documented by recurring outbreaks. As long as classified data exists and new organisms emerge, the full story of Resident Evil's monsters, both their origins and ultimate consequences, remains unfinished.